Their water bottles filled themselves overnight with a dark, metallic liquid. I noticed it before anyone else did. Morning in the mountains comes quietly. The sun doesn't rise so much as leak through the trees, thin bands of gray light slipping between the branches. The air was cold enough that my breath lingered like smoke above the campsite, drifting through the quiet. Our fire had died down to a bed of ash and faint red coals. Everything smelled like damp pine needles and cooling charcoal. I crawled out of the tent slowly, careful not to wake Sam and Ellie, who were still tangled in their sleeping bags behind me. The forest felt impossibly still. No birds yet, no wind, just that thick, insulated silence that settles over remote places before the world wakes up. 3 water bottles sat on the folding table beside the fire pit. They were the same bottles we'd set there the night before. Matte aluminum with scratched paint and dented caps. Mine had a strip of faded blue tape wrapped around the neck. At first I thought someone had refilled them early, but when I picked mine up, something felt wrong. The bottle was heavier than it should have been. The metal felt colder, too. Not just morning cold, the kind of cold that sinks through your fingers. I unscrewed the cap. A smell rose out of the opening. Metallic, sharp, like coins rubbed between wet hands. I tilted the bottle toward the light. The liquid inside wasn't water. It was darker than that, almost black. But when the weak sunrise hit it, thin streaks of dull red shimmered through it like oil beneath the surface. I stared for a long time before calling out. "Sam!" No answer. Behind me, the forest creaked softly as branches shifted somewhere high above. "Sam!" I said again, louder. The tent zipper rasped open. Sam's head appeared, hair flattened on one side. "What? Did you fill these?" He blinked at the bottle in my hand. "Fill what?" "These." Ellie stirred inside the tent. Sam climbed out and grabbed his bottle from the table. The same dark liquid sloshed inside. We looked at each other. "I thought you did it," he said. "I didn't." Ellie crawled out next, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "What's going on?" Sam handed her the 3rd bottle. She sniffed it immediately and grimaced. "That smells awful." The smell spread in the cold air, faint but unmistakable, like rust, like something old and buried. Sam held his bottle up to the rising sun. The liquid inside shifted strangely, thick and slow. "Did we bring anything that could have leaked into them?" he asked. "No," I said. Ellie tilted hers. The surface rippled. For a moment, the light caught it just right. I could have sworn I saw something move inside the reflection. Not bubbles, shapes, but when I leaned closer, it was just the dark liquid again. We didn't drink it, obviously. Sam dumped his bottle onto the dirt beside the fire pit. The liquid splashed heavily, darker than water should have been, soaking into the soil almost instantly. The ground swallowed it. Ellie dumped hers too. I hesitated before emptying mine. As the liquid poured out, the metallic smell grew stronger. And for a split second, I heard something, a sound like a whisper, soft, right beside my ear. I jerked upright. "What?" Sam asked. "Did you hear that?" "Hear what?" The forest remained still. No birds, no wind, just that strange quiet pressing in from all sides. We tried to shrug it off. Maybe someone had messed with the bottles. Maybe minerals in the water from the stream had reacted with the aluminum. Sam rinsed them out with the last of our clean water. The inside walls of the bottles looked normal again, just dull metal. By mid-morning the forest seemed to wake. Wind moved through the branches. A few birds called somewhere deeper in the trees. We hiked the ridge trail behind the cabin for a few hours, trying not to think about it. But something felt wrong all day. Sounds echoed oddly. Footsteps carried farther than they should. Once, I heard Ellie's voice call my name from somewhere behind me on the trail. When I turned, she was walking 20 yards ahead. "I didn't say anything," she insisted. By the time we returned to the cabin, the sky had gone dim and overcast. The temperature dropped fast. We built another fire and cooked dinner in uneasy silence. No one mentioned the bottles again. Until that night, I woke up sometime after midnight. The fire had burned low again, casting a faint orange glow through the tent walls. Something was dripping. Slow. Rhythmic. Plink. 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 I unzipped the tent and stepped outside. The cold air bit immediately at my lungs. The dripping sound came from the table. The 3 bottles stood there again. Full. My chest tightened. I walked closer. The liquid inside them was darker than before, almost completely black. The faint firelight shimmered across the surface. And as I leaned closer, the liquid moved, not sloshing, turning, like something beneath the surface was slowly rotating. The metallic smell filled the air again, but beneath it now was something else, something familiar. I lifted my bottle. The cold ran straight through my palm. Inside the dark liquid, a reflection formed. At first it looked like my face. Then it shifted. I saw my childhood bedroom, the old desk by the window, my father standing in the doorway, a memory I hadn't thought about in years. I dropped the bottle. It hit the dirt with a dull metallic thud. Behind me, Sam's voice whispered softly, "Don't spill it." I spun around. Sam stood near the fire pit. Except he wasn't. Sam was still asleep inside the tent. The figure near the fire pit didn't move. Its face stayed hidden in the shadow of the trees. Then Ellie's voice spoke from somewhere behind me. "Look inside again." My skin prickled. The bottles on the table trembled slightly. The liquid inside them rose up the sides of the metal like thick oil climbing glass. Inside the dark surface, more reflections appeared. Sam laughing around the fire earlier that night. Ellie hiking the ridge trail. Me standing exactly where I was now, watching myself. The forest had gone silent again. No wind, no insects, only the slow, wet sound of liquid shifting inside metal. I backed away from the table. The reflections followed. Not in the bottles. In the puddle of liquid we dumped earlier. It had soaked into the soil that morning. But now the ground was dark and wet again. More of the liquid was seeping upward from the dirt, as if the earth itself was pushing it back out. The puddle spread slowly toward the fire pit, toward the tent, toward me. Then I heard my own voice, from somewhere in the trees. "Don't waste it." The liquid in the bottles trembled harder. The caps began to turn, very slowly, metal scraping against metal, unscrewing themselves. The puddle on the ground moved with purpose now, crawling through the dirt like something alive. It reached the leg of the folding table, climbed it, touched the base of one bottle. The bottle tipped slightly, then righted itself. The cap loosened another fraction. Behind me, the tent zipper opened. Sam stepped out, half asleep. "What are you doing out here?" I didn't answer. He walked toward the table, toward the bottles, toward the dark liquid now filling them to the very rim. "What's that smell?" he muttered. The cap on the nearest bottle finally fell off. It hit the metal table with a sharp clink. The liquid inside didn't spill. Instead it rose, just slightly, like a breath being taken. Sam reached for it. I grabbed his arm. "Don't." He frowned. "Why?" The surface of the liquid smoothed into a perfect mirror. And in that mirror, not Sam, not me, something else stared back. A pale shape stretched across the reflection like a long body crawling along the treetops above us. Watching, waiting, and in the stillness of the forest, a voice rose softly from the open bottle. Not a whisper, not quite a human sound either. Just 3 words. Clear, patient. "Drink so we remember." The forest echoed a scream none of them had made. It happened just after sunset, when the light was draining out of the trees and the air had started to turn cold enough that our breath showed faintly in front of us. We had stopped for the night beside a narrow hiking trail that barely looked used anymore. The map had marked it as a backcountry route, but the trail was more suggestion than path, just a faint depression winding between tall firs and damp patches of moss. Miles from the nearest road. No cell service. No other hikers since noon. The campsite itself was a small clearing beside a fallen cedar trunk. the bark peeling away in dark curls. The ground was soft with needles and wet soil that smelled rich and earthy whenever we disturbed it. Sam had the small camp stove going while Ellie and I gathered sticks for a fire. The forest around us felt enormous. Every sound traveled strangely, branches creaking somewhere high overhead, the soft crunch of boots on needles, the distant tapping of something, maybe a woodpecker, echoing between the trunks in irregular bursts. It was quiet in a way that didn't feel empty, more like the forest was holding its breath. Ellie noticed it first. "Do you hear that?" she asked. Sam looked up from the stove. "Hear what?" She tilted her head toward the trees. For a moment none of us said anything. The cold air pressed against my ears. I listened. At first there was nothing. Just the low whisper of wind sliding through the high branches. Then the forest screamed. It came from somewhere deep beyond the trees. A long, human scream, sharp and raw and sudden enough that my stomach dropped before my brain caught up with it. The sound ripped through the woods and then shattered into echoes that bounced between the trunks. Sam stood up instantly. "What the hell was that?" Ellie shook her head slowly. "I didn't." The echo rolled across the forest again. But this time something was wrong. The second scream didn't sound exactly like the first. It was stretched, thinner, like someone trying to imitate the sound after hearing it once. We stood frozen, listening. The woods went completely silent after that. No wind, no birds. Even the insects seemed to stop. Sam grabbed the flashlight from the table. "Someone might be hurt," he said, but his voice sounded uncertain. The scream had been human, at least at first. Ellie wrapped her arms around herself. "That didn't sound like someone calling for help." I agreed with her, though I couldn't explain why. Something about the tone had felt misplaced, like the emotion didn't quite fit the sound. Sam stepped toward the trail anyway. "We should check." The flashlight beam cut a narrow white path through the trees. We followed it a few steps into the forest. The soil here was damp and dark, soft enough that our boots sank slightly with each step. Fallen needles muffled our movement. The air felt colder away from the fire. Behind us the campsite glowed faintly orange through the trees. Then the scream came again, closer this time, but not quite right. The pitch wavered strangely, like someone dragging their fingers across a recording. The sound broke halfway through, stuttering into something almost like laughter before snapping back into a scream. Ellie grabbed my arm. "That's not a person." Sam lowered the flashlight slightly. The beam shook in his hand. "It could be an animal," he said, but none of us believed it. Animals didn't scream like that. The echo drifted through the forest again. Only this time it came from behind us, from the direction of the campsite. We turned instantly. The fire crackled quietly in the clearing. Nothing else moved. Sam swallowed. "That's not possible." We had walked maybe 20 feet into the trees. There was no way anything could have passed us without making a sound. And yet the scream had come from the clearing. Ellie stepped backward. "I don't like this." Neither did I. The forest seemed to notice our unease. The silence thickened around us. Our footsteps sounded too loud, too hollow. As we moved back toward the campsite, something strange happened with the echoes. A sound I made, just a soft cough, bounced off the trees. But it came back late, much later than it should have. We froze when we heard it. A faint cough drifting through the woods several seconds after I'd made it. Sam stared at me. "That wasn't." Then the forest coughed again. Exactly the same sound, but closer. Ellie's breath caught. The clearing suddenly felt very small. The firelight didn't reach far into the trees. Beyond its glow the forest stood in tall black columns, watching, waiting. Then the scream came again. This time it sounded like Ellie, her exact voice, high and sharp with panic. She clapped both hands over her mouth instantly. "I didn't." The echo stretched her voice into something warped. The second repetition dragged the scream longer than a human breath could hold. The third broke into fragments. Ellie's voice, then Sam's, then mine. layered together in a chorus that rose and fell through the forest like something learning how to speak. The trees threw the sound back and forth between them, closer, farther, above us, behind us, until it became impossible to tell where it had started. Sam turned in a slow circle with the flashlight. "Okay," he said quietly. "That's enough." But the forest didn't stop. The echoes continued, softer now, testing shapes of sound. My laugh, Sam clearing his throat, Ellie whispering my name. Every noise we'd made since arriving seemed to be replaying around us. Some close, some far away, some distorted into something almost unrecognizable. The ground beneath my boots felt strangely hollow, as if the soil itself were carrying the vibrations. Ellie leaned closer to me. "Do you think it's recording us?" Her voice trembled. Sam shook his head, but he didn't look convinced. The echoes faded slowly, until the forest was silent again. Not natural silence, the kind that feels arranged, intentional. We didn't sleep much that night. Every time someone shifted in their sleeping bag, the sound returned minutes later from somewhere deeper in the woods. Delayed, copied, adjusted, as if the forest was practicing. Around dawn the air grew even colder. The fire had burned down to ash. The trees stood gray and still in the early light. And just before the sun broke over the ridge, the forest finally screamed again. But this time the voice was clear, perfect. It was mine, calling out from somewhere far beyond the trail. Panicked, desperate, shouting the same 3 words over and over again. "Don't follow it." Sam and Ellie stared at me. I hadn't spoken. The echo carried my voice deeper into the trees, repeating the warning, over and over, until another sound rose behind it. Quieter, closer, a new voice, one the forest had just learned. Ellie's, soft, patient. "Too late,"